So I'm Alex McDonald from the Environment Agency. Have a number of different hats. So I work on environmental assessment for our big flood schemes. And for the past 2.5 years or so, I've been the project manager for the Soar Natural Flood Management project, which is one of the Defra pilot programme, and also working with Leslie and Alan from the Rivers Trust on the Loud project as well. So a little bit of broad perspective there. What I'm going to talk to you about today is a bit about the Environment Agency's perspective on natural flood management with my hat on as a project manager, and then lead into some of the things that we're working on the Soar Natural Flood Management project that's really on the ground at the moment, and a little bit of a watch this space. So, obvious drivers for the Environment Agency. These photos are from November. They could have been from this weekend, they could be from last weekend. Right now, it's been wet. It's getting wetter. We're seeing an increase of winter storms, and seeing an increase in frequency of them as well, and in the amount of rain they're just chucking on the catchment at that time. And there's a lot of water, there's a lot to deal with. And there's a recognition that we can't just keep building ever higher and higher defences. We know that we can't do that as the EA. We know that we need to be trialling and testing different approaches to the way that we need to manage the land, the way that we look at catchments, and the way that we look at flood risk as a whole. There's also been, definitely in the past couple of years, a change in the language and the stuff that we're hearing internally as well. Our Chief Exec, James Bevan, the language is all around a climate emergency at the moment. What are we going to do as an organisation that tackles that? How are we going to manage flood risk differently? And how are we going to have those conversations with the communities we work with about resilience? And resilience is really coming up there a lot more. It was interesting, just over the last weekend, John Curtin, our flood risk, the Director for Flood Risk Management, was actually saying in the press, we can't protect you all, which is definitely a change in language and a changing sugarcoating the way that we definitely have messages out. So I think in terms of natural flood risk management, it's a really interesting time. Steve talked earlier around the barriers project and looking at that. And definitely from my perspective, we have got a challenge in the way that we deliver these types of projects within the Environment Agency. We're learning a lot from the Defra programme, and I think it's really interesting, not necessarily evidence around the effectiveness of NFM, but about how we need to change our processes within the EA to allow us to be able to do these types of projects a lot easier. There's certain barriers. We need to look at a catchment scale rather than a point scale, which traditionally in flood risk we've been good at doing. We've been good at going, that community is at risk, we need to build walls there. We now need to step back, look at a catchment side of it, like water quality, and our environment colleagues have been doing for years. But it's quite hard to shift that. Once you start widening out the area that you're going to work on, you suddenly have a lot more stakeholders. So for the Soar NFM, I think even when I started, before we had sites, I had about 75 stakeholders, and a lot of those were really interested, wanted to input to the project. It's a lot to manage. You want those views in, and you need to set up systems and processes to be able to deal with that, and to deal with the people you need to engage with in a project properly and effectively as well. Also on the flood risk management side, it's a change of skills, and in some ways a change of thinking as well. We're not all great at going and talking to landowners, and I know if I have to go and talk to a farmer, a bit like, I don't quite know where the common ground is. We need to be bringing in those skills to the flood risk projects that we're delivering, so we're more effective at delivering these type of things that look at more of a catchment scale. So we're not going to solve them all overnight, but I think slowly over the next couple of years or so, you'll see things being put into place. So we're looking at how we deal with these more effectively on our projects, and how we integrate things like NFM more into the jigsaw of work that we're doing to tackle flood risk. So just bringing it right back down to the Soar NFM, There's quite a lot of people in the room that have been involved in the project, so if you just want to put your hands up, these are the people you can ask questions to after if my voice is gone. It's part of the Defra National Pilot Programme, and we're given the task of flood risk to Leicester through NFM. Not an easy task, but what we've really tried to do with the project is bring a partnership together off the back of the Soar catchment partnership to try and look at where we can pick sites that would help to reduce flood risk, but also improve the ecology, the habitats that we've got there, to monitor it. So we're working in partnership with Harriet Watt University and a PhD student there, so there's that monitoring aspect of it. And then it also fits into the Leicester Integrated Flood Risk Management Strategy, which was just being developed when we started the project. I think we stressed it before, but NFM is definitely, it's part of a jigsaw puzzle in putting together how we manage flood risk. And we know that, we're aware of that. Within Leicester, we've done a lot of work with the City Council on Ellis Meadows. But if you've not seen it, head down there in May, the wildflowers are amazing. But looking at how we manage flood risk through big green infrastructure projects that have really changed public open space and the way that it's used, and also improved the local economy as well. So on the back of that, we're looking at how can we then use NFM in the wider catchment. And the Soar catchment, it's really big. It's over 500 kilometres squared. We've been working on Loudon, you've got about 12 kilometres squared you've got to deal with. The scale of the problem is really, it's different. So in terms of the NFM project, we've tried to focus on sites that we can try, test stuff, and then work out how many more of these do we need to replicate across the catchment to make a difference. Realising in the 2-3 years that we've got of the project, it's just not feasible to tackle all of that. It's a massive beast, and it does need to be linked in with the land management change. So that kind of scale of the catchment led us down a path of basically who would let us do stuff on their land, and if it was taking a lot of time for engagement, we just had to park that idea. So we've ended up with 4 main sites. We've got Ayleston Meadows, which is in the city, and Leicester City Council have been taken ahead. We've got Croft, which is a private landowner, which, if it stops raining, hopefully will get done in by the end of March. We've got Narborough Bog, which is owned by the Leicestershire and Rutland Wildlife Trust, and I'll go into a little bit more detail about that in a second. And we've got Enderby, which is Big Pond that they're on site at the moment, and we're hoping the river levels don't go up again and flood us again. So these have been the sites. They're all on Main River, and we've looked at slowing the flow, holding it on the land for longer. So, as I said, we did start off with the best intentions, looking at the whole catchment. Where do we target? We narrowed it down to 12 sites where we knew the landowner, where we thought there would be potential for NFM. We brought in Atkins that have been really great in helping us with the designs and the ideas around how we actually get this on the ground. We then brought the steering group together as a collaborative, looked at the pros and cons of each site, what the multiple benefits would be, how we could help improve the ecology and the flood risk as well, and then channelled it out into literally who would let us put stuff on the ground. So just to go into a little bit more detail about Narborough Bogs, Ben gets really excited about it. So Narborough Bogs is a triple SI. There's not many of them in Leicestershire, unfortunately. It's right next to the River Soar, and it's just upstream of Leicester City Centre. It is the largest area of natural reed bed in the county, albeit it looks pretty small, bless it. And it's sat on a little deposit of peat as well. So when we're looking along the watercourse going, natural flood management, multiple benefits, I wonder if we can do something there. It's got wet habitats, it should be wet, it should like being wet, and the people that are managing it should hopefully want it to be a little bit wetter. So I guess luckily from our side of it, when we approached the Wildlife Trust, and Natural England, it turns out the peat was drying out, so there was the potential to do something there. I'll just flick to this one. So what we've really tried to do here, and come round in the summer when it's slightly less wet, but we're setting up a site tour business if anyone wants it. We tried to design natural flood management features that look natural and emulate the natural processes within the wet woodland area of the site. So we've got a couple of trees going across the main river Soar. Next one's coming down next Friday if the river levels are okay. And these are meant to try and kick water onto the site. And then we've got a number of features within the woodland area that are meant to hold water on the site for longer. And all of the design we try to be proportionate about, not over-engineer it. Trying to go, I want one of these, two of those, and all of the health and safety stuff's on the design as well. We've got monitoring, I said, we've got a PhD student, we've got water levels going in, a little bit of a watch this space. We're loving the time-lapse camera, so we've got 5 of these across the site at 10-minute intervals. We've teamed up with Blaby District Council that are downloading the data every month. And we're also getting the incidental wildlife spotting, which is really interesting for the Wildlife Trust as well, so we can see what else is going on that site, as well as how our natural flood management features are functioning. So as I say, I haven't got any data to show you yet, but give us 6 months, we might have some analysed and we can come back and show you. And this is the pond that's been dug at the moment, and our site in Croft that's on the edge of an arable field. And finally, I just want to say thanks to all of the partners involved. I think one of the really nice things about working on this project has been the knock-on effects of it. The fact that partners have come along with us on the journey, working out what on earth we're going to do, what sites we're going to do. And they've come with us through that, took ideas away, so the Wildlife Trust looking at how they can implement this over their wider portfolio of reserves. Blaby District Council looking at how it fits with their green agenda, the climate emergency, and starting to take these ideas and look at the wider Leicestershire area of where it can be implemented. So we'll see how that goes in the next year or so.